What is up, everyone? It's Ollie here from El-Gorr.com, and today we're going to do part 2 of how to write Kindle book descriptions that sell. If you haven't seen part 1, then I'll link it down in the description. Part 1, we discussed what a book description is, the true purpose of a book description, and it's not just to describe your book, something a lot of authors and new publishers get wrong. And also the 3 elements that every single book description must have in order to sell. And so in part 2 today, we're going to talk about the actual mechanics of the description, the structure I use to write all of mine, and just some mistakes that people make with theirs. So let's get into it. This is the structure that you can use in any niche. 5 parts: headline, lead and story section, bullets or bullet points, objections, and then a close or call to action. And this works for any non-fiction niche because it leads the buyer along a journey to the buy button. Before we talk about things you should do, I'm going to talk about everything that you shouldn't. Number 1, and this is by far and away the most important, is lie. You should not have anything in your book description that cannot be backed up by the information inside your book. A lot of times on Amazon I see these descriptions, they make ridiculous claims, and ones that, if you're honest with yourself, your book can't back up. And not only is this just dishonest and deceptive, it's also illegal depending on what niche you're in. And I'm not saying this to fearmonger, because, you know, most likely the worst thing that will happen to you on Amazon is that you'll get a bad review for your book. But if you move off of Amazon and you start selling your own products, and if you're selling high-priced products, or if you're selling products with a mass market audience, and your marketing is deceptive, then you can run into some problems. So yeah, don't lie. Thing is, you don't really need to if you know what you're doing. Second thing you shouldn't do is use these dishonest tactics like fake scarcity and fake price information. Like sometimes you'll see what I've got on the screen now. Usual price $9.99, get it today for $2.99 only. It's not true though, is it? It's not today only. It's not usually $9.99 either. And fake scarcity doesn't work. Customers can see through this. People have never been more advertised to. Think about people in the US, for example, where most of your book sales are going to come from. They see thousands and thousands and thousands of marketing messages every single day. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, websites they go on their car journeys to work, while they're listening to the radio. All advertising, marketing messages. They're very desensitized, they're very skeptical. Using these like short-term tactics, these dishonest tactics, it doesn't work as well as you think it does. It's much better to be honest with someone and do business in honest ways than it is to try and deceive them into buying. It might work once, but that's not a way to build an audience. You can't build an audience with deception. It just doesn't work. Third thing you should never do is try and sell more than one thing at once. A lot of publishers overlook this. I see it a lot as well. People say, hey, should I tell people to go to another book in my description for this book? For example, if I have a beginner's book, and should I tell people that I also have an advanced version out? And the answer is always no. You only sell one thing to one person at one time. If you try and sell more than one thing, you're giving people too many choices. That leads to indecision, and that leads to you not making any sales. Fourth thing you should never do: copy and paste big chapters of the book. I see new publishers do this all the time because they don't really know what to write, so they're like, oh, I've got to fill the space somehow. And so they just copy and paste a big chapter of the book. Don't do this. It doesn't help sell it. If customers really want to read an excerpt from your book, they will click on the Look Inside button on Amazon, and that's where they'll look at it. Fifth thing is focusing on perfect grammar. You're not trying to win awards here. This isn't school. It's a conversation between two people. It's not an essay. You can have one-line paragraphs. You can have sentences that begin with and. You can have sentences that begin with because. Just have it as a conversation between you and the customer. You'll get much better results that way. And the sixth thing you should never do is let an outsourced writing company write your book description for you. This is something a lot of people do when starting out. They're like, oh, I'll just let the writing company do it for me. Don't do this. I'll tell you why. Writing companies have no incentive to give you a good description, because their obligation to you ends as soon as they send you the book. Whether your book sells 0 copies or sells 1 million copies, it doesn't matter to them. They don't get paid more based on that. So their descriptions they will provide to you will be the bare bones. It will be not very well researched. It will most likely be just describing what's inside the book, and that's not going to sell. There we go, got it eventually. So let's get into the actual structure of the book. Obviously, the first thing your customer is going to see is the headline. This is the thing that appears above the fold, so above that read more button on Amazon, and this is usually a line or two of text. The only purpose of your headline is to get the customers to read the next line. However, the problem is that people try and sell the book in the headline. They try and get people to buy right there and then. And for the vast majority of your buyers, probably 95%, they're not ready yet. They're not ready to buy the book just based on the headline. So if you try and sell the book with some huge hypey claim, you're going to turn them away. So your headline should attract attention. That's where curiosity comes in. And it should address the market, so address the customers, rather than just hyping up your book. Got an example on the screen here. An example of what not to do. This book will make you millions with Bitcoin. Number one, it's not something you can prove. So, definitely questionable from an honesty standpoint. What you could say though, better way of saying it, if you don't want to miss out on what CNBC is calling the biggest financial opportunity of the century, then keep reading. So what that does is, gets the customers to read the next line. It gets them to click that read more button, because we haven't made any huge claims here. We've just said that CNBC, which is a reputable news source, has this quote about the biggest financial opportunity of the century. That's curiosity. We don't know exactly what the opportunity is yet. We also have some urgency here, because if you don't want to miss out on, in other words, if you don't take action, then other people are going to get rich. And that's a big, big emotional thing here. People don't like missing out on things, FOMO. But there's also something else going on here, because there's an implication that other people are getting rich. And so, if you're not part of the cool kids club, and you're on the outside, then not only are you going to still be poor, everyone else who took the opportunity is going to be now way above you as well. So what this does is it just makes the person go, yeah, I'd like to keep reading this. Whereas this one, it's just shouting at people, huge claim, skeptical, probably not going to click the next line. Story, or the lead. This is the section that comes afterwards. Purpose of this is to build credibility and trust with your reader. However, the problem is that people dive straight into the benefits before they gain any credibility or trust. You have to discuss your customers' problems before you bring in the solution. Because if you don't, it just looks like you're trying to sell them something. Customers will happily talk all day about their problems. If you've ever had a friend, and that friend has just talked to you for hours about something that's going wrong in their life, a problem that they have, and you couldn't care less. But for that person, that problem is like the biggest thing in the world. It's the only thing they really want to talk about. Problems attract more attention than benefits. That sounds very counterintuitive. But if you look at the third point, People take action to avoid pain more than they do to make the gain. Time and time again, this has been proven in testing in terms of copywriting and sales. Focusing on the problem and making the problem appear so powerful and so shocking converts better than just talking about the amazing benefits they're going to get. Because people like to take action to avoid their pain more than they do just to get benefits. The other part of this section is that you need to make people think you are like them. If you just talk about benefits straight away before you talk about the problems, and for example, ailments people have. Say you're selling a book about diabetes. How to cure your diabetes with a cool diet. If all you do is talk about the cool diet, but you don't talk about the pain that having diabetes gives these people in their daily lives, all that customers are going to think is that you're trying to sell them something. They don't feel like you actually understood them yet. But if you talk about the problems that they have, if you've done your research and you can talk about, suffering from diabetes and how that affects people's everyday lives, the things they can't do anymore, they're going to start to think that you empathize with them. They're going to think that you have their best interests at heart. They're now going to be more open to the solution you're offering them than if you just put the solution in front of their faces straight away. Bullets. After the headline, this is the most important section of your book because this is where you do all the selling. However, the problem is that most new publishers just give away all the secrets inside the book. Now your customer doesn't have to buy the book. For example, a common niche is the keto diet. And so you might have a bullet that says how the keto diet works. In this book, you will learn how the keto diet works. Great. Now they can just Google it. How does the keto diet work? Doesn't actually do any selling. Whereas you could say, how to lose up to 4 pounds a week without exercise. Because now they're thinking, oh, okay, that sounds good. The information inside the book could be the exact same. Say you have a chapter about this. This chapter could apply to this, and it could also apply to this. But this one in green does a lot more selling because it's a lot more curiosity packed. Second one, why you should buy Ethereum. Say you got a book about cryptocurrency. Ethereum is a popular cryptocurrency, here's why you should buy it. They can just Google it. Why is Ethereum good? Benefits of Ethereum, how to buy Ethereum. What you could say instead is you could talk about the cryptocurrency with potential to surpass Bitcoin in 2019. See, now they know there's a cryptocurrency out there that has potential to be bigger than Bitcoin, but they don't know what it is yet. You've given them the curiosity, but you haven't given away the secret. This one gives away the secret. This one gives away the secret. These ones in green, they don't. They have to buy the book to get the secret. There has never been more free information online than there is today. You have to make your customer think there are secrets inside your book. Because if you don't do that, they're not going to buy it. They're not going to spend their money on information they already know. They have to believe there's something new inside which they don't know yet. After your bullets comes the objections section. The purpose of this is you overcome last-minute customer objections. The problem is that most books just skip this section completely. So they have the bullet points and then they just go into the close. Your customers are always going to have last-minute objections. Why they won't buy. That's just the nature of sales. People are always looking for an excuse not to buy. However, you have to reassure your customers the information can work for them. Special snowflake syndrome. People always think their scenario or situation is unique. There's a reason that they can't do it. There's a reason it can't work for them. I'm giving you some down below there. People aren't tech savvy, therefore they don't think this business opportunity could work. Some people might have a knee injury, so they can't exercise, therefore you have to show them that this diet works even if you can't exercise. Scared of losing all their money. If you've got any books about investing, finance, day trading, whatever it is, people are scared of losing all their money, therefore you have to show that there is a element of risk being reduced with your information. If they buy your book, they will have less risk of losing all their money. What makes your book different? A lot of these niches, your book won't be the first one they've bought about a certain topic. Why is the information in your book different? Why is your book going to work when all those other books have failed? Think about your customer's journey. Think about the trials and tribulations they've had before getting to this point. Think about their awareness level. These are all things that in the research phase you should be finding out. Any sort of diet book, for example, it's probably not the only diet book they've ever bought. Why is this one different? Why will this one work where all the others have failed? That's what you have to overcome in the objections section. And the final section, the close or the call to action. This is where you tell your customer exactly what you want them to do. The problem is a lot of people give a very weak, timid close which barely asks for the sale. What I talked about in the first video with urgency, give them a reason to act now. Because if they don't act now, it's very unlikely they'll come back and buy your book at another time. Your book description is a sales page for your book. For products like this, low ticket mass market products, where you have lots of competition, people aren't coming back to your book. They're just going to buy someone else's because you haven't done a good enough job of convincing them to buy your book. Your competition are making sales where you are not. So you have to give them a reason, if they're reading your book description, to act now. That can be as simple as saying something like, so if you want a way to lose weight without exercise, scroll up and click buy now. Versus saying, so if you want a way to lose weight without exercise, this book is for you. This one tells them exactly what to do. This one doesn't. Before we finish up the video, I want to talk about using your market's language. This is something you should do throughout your entire description. And this is what's going to separate you from every other book on Amazon. 99% of books on Amazon have terrible descriptions. That's why the vast majority of the sales is concentrated with a small group of authors and publishers, because their books are just much better presented than all the other books out there. By using market language, I mean talk how your market talks. Use the slang words that they use. Use acronyms that they use. For example, I've given 3 on the screen right now. The ones on the left are very, very vague terms. They don't really mean anything. The ones on the right are more targeted to your market. If you're in the golf niche and you have a book that says, hey, this will show you how to play better golf, that does nothing for someone in the golf market. Anyone can say that. Doesn't mean you've researched them at all. They don't think you have their best interests at heart. But if you say, hey, here's a way to add 50 yards off the tee every single time, that's how they would talk about the problem. Therefore, they now think that you've researched them. They think that you have credibility. Their trust levels in you are increasing. They're more likely to be receptive to what you have to say. They're more likely to buy your book. Second example, lose weight. Once again, doesn't do anything because very, very vague. Whereas the term burn fat is more targeted. If you're selling a book to bodybuilders and you're saying, hey, here's a way to lose weight, they're not going to respond to that. But if you say, here's a way to burn fat off your body faster than ever before, they're like, oh, okay, something I might be interested in. Same with the third example, become more spiritual, doesn't do anything. Align your chakras, people in that niche, that's what they're interested in. That's the language that they use. use the language of your market. If you haven't subscribed already, what are you doing? So do so now, subscribe, and stay tuned for part 3. If you want to find out more about how to write better book descriptions, as well as other mistakes that people are making right now, you can click on that link. It will also be down below. El-Gorr.com. You get a free copy of 7 Deadly Self-Publishing Sins, and inside you will find 7 common mistakes publishers make and how you can avoid them. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 3.